Good morning. Is everyone excited to be here today? Yes, fantastic. I know it's been a few years since many of us have been to the events up in New York, whether it be Ad Week, Brand Innovators, Programmatic I/O, so it's fantastic to be here. So I'm Julie Saxon, and I'm the CRO of IBM Watson Advertising and the Weather Channel, and I'll let Tina introduce herself.
I'm Tina Mahal. I sat down right away. Did you see that? I was like, let me get off these heels and let me sit down. Tina Mahal, I work with PepsiCo on the snacks business on the FritoLay side. I've been there for about 19 years, almost 20 years.
Major longevity. So
yes.
Just to set the stage of what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about how FritoLay is really winning with cultural moments, right? And we're also going to be talking about purpose-driven marketing, which I know is something that we all hear a lot about these days. But before we do that, I know I did a post this morning and I was talking about my absolute love for Cheetos, which was the first brand you started working on, right?
That's right.
Okay, so we're gonna keep y'all honest and do a little bit of Cheetos trivia, right? So just to set the stage, my love for Cheetos goes deep. My children, as a Mother's Day present, gave me a bag of Cheetos. I love it that much. Who knows what year Cheetos started? Okay. Bueller? Okay, no one. 1948 is when Cheetos started. And am I right in saying 4 billion in sales for Cheetos a year? Does that sound about right?
It sounds about right. It is a big brand for us, and it's because of people like me that are
very,
massive
very
fans. Yeah.
Very passionate. So who knows how many flavors Cheetos has? Monica, you're looking like you think you might know.
I'm going through hot Cheetos, super hot Cheetos, regular Cheetos.
It's 21 flavors. That is impressive. And so we all want people that are super passionate about our brands and super loyal. So who knows who dressed up as a flaming hot Cheeto for Halloween one year? No, it's actually not me, but Katy Perry did. That's how passionate she is. And there was also a billionaire who posted on Instagram about and showed his Cheeto-y fingers.
Yes, the Cheetle. Yeah.
Who does anyone know who that was? Okay, Jeff Bezos is like a super Cheetos lover. So that's one of the brands that you started working on, and now you're working on Cracker Jill, correct?
Yeah, well, so now I did start working on Cheetos. That is what brought me to FritoLay. I interviewed for a job. Someone gave me the opportunity to work on, I think, a brand that was such a big part of my childhood. And I was like, how could I possibly pass this up? So that's how I started at FritoLay in the Canadian business. And now I look after our portfolio marketing. So I look after our media communications, bringing the greatness of our brands together through a lot of marquee events that we have, our innovation, and then I'm definitely missing something, which my team is going to be really sad about. But basically, all of our portfolio marketing and bringing our portfolio together is what I run now.
So Cracker Jack, for those of y'all that don't know, the name slogan was registered in 1896 with the tagline, "The more you eat it, the more you want it." And it was owned by FritoLay and marketed in 1997. But what is so cool is Cracker Jack, that so many of us remember growing up with, has now just in April launched Cracker Jill, which is so cool. So my mom is one of 4 girls. I'm one of 3 girls. I have 2 girls. So I just find this amazing. And it's the newest mascot in 125 years. And y'all know that kind of jingle? Buy me some, I won't sing, but buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jill. No one can stop if you have the will. Let's root for the girls team. Like, that's just amazing, right? I love that. So anything else to add on Cracker Jill?
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about purpose and extending our brands into purpose. So Cracker Jill is likely one of the most important things that I feel like I've worked on. And so having the chance to take something 126 years old now, that brand is Cracker Jack. And it stood for one thing for 126 years, which was it showed up at baseball games. Like, that's really the connection that we had with culture, is that it would show up in that song, in the famous iconic song that was...
I spared y'all from singing.
Yes,
I kind of wanted to.
I am also not going to sing, although one of my fun facts is I once sang for the Canadian Prime Minister, but not because I could sing, but because I just ended up on stage with a choir. But anyway, but I'm not going to sing now. But we took this this legacy brand that was connected to sports in a really interesting way. And we thought, well, we've got to modernize this brand, and we need someone to be on the stage with Cracker Jack, and that's how Cracker Jill was born. And the insight, the consumer insight, is exactly what you just described, with the fact that you've got you've got daughters, you're one of three.
You have two daughters.
I have two daughters. I'm one of three girls as well. And this notion
I knew
of
we were best friends.
and this notion of if you can see something, you know that you can be it. And what we realized is that there was not a lot of that. There was not a lot of that representation in female sports. And we had a responsibility as this old brand that was tied to sports to really start bringing that to life. And so Cracker Jill was born. I think you're going to get some packages. So they're around here in the building somewhere. And there's 5 different representations of women on the bags. And then we partnered with recording artist Normani, and she redid the lyrics and sang that song. So if you look it up, you should watch her sing this powerful rendition of this iconic song, really talking about how women are excelling in sports. So really, honestly, it gives me like goosebumps when I talk about it, because I think it's been such an important thing that we've done.
So you've mentioned a little bit about your career path, but tell us more. Like, sometimes people think of their careers as like up, 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 but sometimes it can be a jungle gym, right? So tell us more about how you started and how, what is it, almost 20 years you've been with the brand? Like, what has led you to your present role?
Yeah, so it's been 19 years. So I'm not 20 yet, but I can't wait for what my 20th anniversary gift will look like. But almost 20 with PepsiCo. And I always thought I wanted to be an accountant. My eldest sister is an accountant. I admired her. I kind of followed her around and thought, okay, well, I'll do exactly what she's doing. She seems pretty happy. I would have been a really horrible accountant. I'm actually horrible with numbers. But I was lucky enough to get an internship, and it was because it was just close to where I lived, at FM Foods. So in Canada, that's Mars. And so I worked on the launch of Dove chocolate in Canada. And I did everything from thinking about the strategy to handing out chocolate bars at movie theaters, as part of sampling programs. This is amazing. It's amazing
It's bringing joy.
It's bringing joy. So, and it was interesting to think that you could get into a function like marketing. You can think about strategy all the way down to that moment when someone's got your product in their hands, and what that does for them. And so I was lucky enough I worked at SC Johnson for a couple of years. I knew that once I could get passionate about mosquitoes and bugs, because I worked on Raid and Off, and then I thought, okay, well, there's something here and something to this if you can actually fall in love with things like bugs and mosquitoes. I knew a lot about mosquitoes, lots of facts about mosquitoes. And that led me to FritoLay. And, what an amazing place to work when you are connected to brands from your childhood. And we do a lot of really great work that is purposeful, really great marketing. So it's been a fun time. The 19 years have flown by.
Well, FritoLay is really known for bringing those kind of big, bold, creative marketing campaigns, right? So when you think about the big cultural moments that are out there, you've got the World Cup, you have the Super Bowl, but it's crowded space, right? So how do you really break through in those times?
Yeah, one of the things that we always look at is there purpose in what we're doing? And so if you think about FritoLay and where we show up, and hopefully where we show up even in your homes, it's around these moments of togetherness. And so these marquee events and these marquee times where people are coming together, there's usually snacks present. There's usually, Pepsi present. There's our beverages are present. And what happens around those moments is we transform those moments with joy. And so you're coming together and you're watching, your favorite sports team, and there's joy in that. There's joy in being with your family, with being the people you love, and watching something that you're incredibly passionate about. And so I think we look for, hey, do we have a reason to be in that moment? And if we do, then we should celebrate that. And so that's why we show up in a lot of, Super Bowl is a big time for us, and we do a lot of activation, a lot of marketing around that. We just signed with FIFA, or we're about to execute a great program with FIFA. It is the first time in FIFA's history that they've had a snacks partner, and we've never done anything with soccer before. So this is an incredible time. I pinch myself that we're going through this right now. First time in FIFA's history that they've partnered with snacks. And the reason we did it is not because we were absent, but because our consumers were there, and soccer is such a rising sport in the U.S. And we weren't participating. And we know that from our participation in things like Super Bowl, et cetera, that we should. And we can do some really purposeful things there. So more to come on FIFA. I think there's like a release that's going out today. We've got new flavors that are coming out as part of that program.
Adding to the 21?
We're adding to a lot more flavors. So we've got some Lay's flavors, some Lay's wavy flavors that limited time that are inspired by some of our flavors globally. We've got a really great campaign with some pretty exciting talent that's going to be coming out here in a few weeks.
So who here has been to like a major soccer game recently? Okay, so I live in Atlanta, and Atlanta has the Atlanta United, and just as interesting intel and to prove the point of just how passionate it is, I don't know exactly how long Atlanta United's been around, 5, 6 years. Okay, Lauren, what do you know? 4 or 5. Okay. So I did a little recon on this just to show how important it is. The average stadium is filled with over 57,000
Yes.
people in Atlanta for a home game.
I
right?
think in 2022, there was 10 million viewers that went and watched a soccer game with MLS. So, this very important, incredibly important sport, rising
Yeah.
sport. And they've got the Women's World Cup next year. So, hopefully we will
Cracker Jill.
take some of the inspiration and some of the important things that we learned on Cracker Jill and start bringing that to life next year
Yeah,
as
it's
well.
truly unbelievable. Like I'm the middle of 3 girls. One of my sisters lives in Charlotte, and they are the second highest turnout in Charlotte for soccer games. So it's really unbelievable. So taking a look at the whole purpose-driven marketing, like I'm really curious about how you are using this to decide, like really define what do your brands stand for, right? Because we've seen such a rise in everything from, I don't know, Tom's to Warby Parker to Bombas socks. Like purpose-driven marketing really helps engage with your consumers. Like how do you use this to drive your business, and what are some examples of that?
Yeah, so Cracker Jill is a great example of that we talked about. But we look for, can we show up authentically? And I think a lot of brands have this aspiration that now they're either born out of purpose or they connect themselves to purpose. And the reason for that is, people no longer want to see a 60-second ad or 30 or even a 6-second spot on TV. They want to know that a brand connects with their values and with what they stand for as well. But you have to do that authentically. And if it's a forced thing that's so apparent to consumers, it's apparent to yourself, it doesn't feel good. So we look for what are authentic ways that our brands are actually connecting with consumers. And then we lean in there. So Cracker Jill, was a great example of finding that authentic moment, that authentic connection that people had with Cracker Jack, and then using it to modernize the brand. But we also, while we do that and we connect to purpose and we have these great marquee events, I think the way we talk to consumers about it is also incredibly important. So we've got, this recipe for creative on how some of this stuff should come to life. So I don't know if any of you have seen some of our holiday stuff in the past. So we had, a Jimmy Fallon ad with our portfolio of things last year. Before that, there was this Anna Kendrick ad, and it was about bringing the joy of the holiday together. And so again, if you think about our brands and how they authentically show up during the holiday season, it's about togetherness, it's about coming together with food, et cetera. So we took, iconic holiday songs, and had Jimmy Fallon and Anna Kendrick kind of bring childlike wonder back to life through those songs. And so showing up creatively in a way that's different, that connects with the consumer is important. So we've done that. And then we've also gone off screen. So I think it's important that we continue to push on, technology with our social platforms. This past year for Super Bowl, we did a partnership with Megan Thee Stallion, and her release of the Flamin' Hottie song, which hopefully, if you haven't heard it, look it up after this session. And we partnered with Snapchat, and the song was released on a Doritos chip. So like a virtual Doritos chip, you could watch her sing the song, watch her kind of perform the song. And so we're looking for, one, what's the connection with consumers, and then what's interesting, timely ways that we can bring it to life for consumers as well.
So I am curious. I remember growing up with like Cracker Jack. It was all about like, the little mini tattoo or whatever was in the inside, and y'all have evolved with that. What is the strategy with Cracker Jill there? Like, what is the prize?
Yeah. So, I think we're working on that a little bit, but I think, again, it's about contemporizing your brand.
Right.
The connection back to women's sports, for me and what we're working through is, should the prize be about giving back to women's sports? I think that would be a meaningful way to continue the story of Cracker Jill, but finalizing that.
Okay, because we all, I'm sure, are curious on that. So you were speaking for a moment, and over the past couple years, you hear like authentic, vulnerable, all these words that are coming out. And like speaking from my own personal experience, for example, there's been a lot of conversations about what does flexibility mean, right? And I think flexibility can mean lots of things, and it's up for interpretation. So if I'm thinking about, like, I'm looking at Paul right now, and we were on a call the other day, and he's like, I've never seen you in a baseball hat. And I'm like, well, I'm working from home today, and it was like the day I was back from a fall break with my kids, and it was just internal back-to-back, and flexibility meant no makeup and a baseball hat on internal calls, right? And so it's kind of up to all of us as leaders to help define what that means. So I would be curious about how your leadership style has evolved, and really what roles have mentors played for you, and like how has that really changed in the past couple years?
Yeah. So, my leadership style, here's what I've learned about leadership style. I've got, and maybe you've gotten the same thing. I've had so much advice over years. When you get into performance reviews and someone tells you, oh, you need more visibility, you need to be louder, you need to speak more, you need to, all these things. You get all this feedback all the time. And what I've learned about leadership and leadership style is the things that give you energy are the things that you should lean into in terms of your leadership. So I get a lot of energy from winning. So part of my leadership style is, how do we win? What's the right things to do to win in the market and with the things that we're doing? But I also get a lot of energy from people development. And I get a lot of energy from thinking with people and collaborating with people. And so that's what I lean into as it comes to my leadership style. I think that's the advice that we should give people and to people that we're mentoring. And it's good advice that I've received from some mentors, of lean into those things that actually help you shine. I remember one of my old bosses, who is fantastic. I love him. He was a great mentor, but he gave me really bad advice on like how I should show up. He listened.
What was it?
It was so he would listen in to these task force calls that we would have, and I was a bit more junior. And one day he called me into his office and he's like, "You're too nice. Like we're not going to get anything done. You're too nice." And part of where I get energy is also I want to go home at night thinking that we all had a really great day at work. That feels like the right thing to do after a good day at work. And I finally had a moment, and I still remember this, where I was like, listen, I am nice. And in 3 months from now, if we don't get done what we're supposed to get done, that was the timeline for what we were trying to get achieved, then let's talk about it. And then I probably need to do something different. But let me do this. Let me figure it out in 3 months. I will do it nicely. I'll go to bed knowing that I treated people really well at the end of the day. And then if it doesn't work, then I'll take a different approach. And he remembers that story. We talk about it a lot. And it was like a bit of an awakening for me on, hey, this is where I get energy. That's the type of leader that I want to be. And that's what I should lean into. And I'm not mostly nice. Maybe because I'm Canadian, but mostly nice. Yeah.
Well, I know for me personally, one of the things that I learned in talking about that, I went to this fabulous leadership development program, and I learned that your biggest strength is always your biggest weakness, right? And I heard that and I thought, this doesn't really make sense to me. So similar to you, your biggest strength might be perceived as a weakness in other situations. Like take, for example, for me, I was in this leadership development, and I was told that I have a really big personality and that I can overwhelm people. And I was like, what? I'm just trying to be nice to everybody. Like that's just part of who I am.
Yeah. So I'm getting the opposite advice of me, where people are like, speak more, be loud. Yeah.
Well, I think what it is it's about being aware,
Yeah.
right? So I'm, and sales and marketing and all of those roles tend to be big personalities, nice personalities, for example. But it's really about knowing your audience too, because not everyone we talk to is necessarily in marketing roles, in sales roles, et cetera. So having that awareness of how you come off to people is super important, right?
Yeah, and I think it's about, it's about knowing how to win when you can be authentically you. So I think that's the learning, that's been the learning for me, because I think if your biggest strength is your weakness and you're not succeeding, then that's a problem. Then you need to address it. But if your biggest strength is your weakness, but you can figure out how to succeed with it, how to have your voice heard, I leaned into substance. I leaned into my work. And at PepsiCo, the good thing is that's recognized really well. And the loudest voice in the room, it doesn't always need to win. Substance matters at PepsiCo and at that company. And I've been super lucky to then have a long career there because of it.
And then kind of twisting on that just a little bit, when you're thinking about mentors in your life, right? Tell me a little bit about, we don't have to necessarily name names, but like, how has a mentor really helped you in your life, and how do you view mentorship within your organization?
Yeah, and then I would love to hear for how that has been for you as well. But because of who I am and now you probably get a good sense of my personality. But
You're not nice.
Yeah, I had a hard time with the fake, hey, can you be my mentor? Or setting up those like strange meetings and uncomfortable meetings where I had to sit across from someone and say, let me tell you why I'm really great. And can you like help me be better or greater, if that's a word? So that always felt really kind of shitty to me, honestly. So my mentors evolved from people that I worked with. And I started to become okay with that. Again, I would get lots of advice on seek other people that you don't work with, et cetera. But, we move around a lot at PepsiCo. And so I started to build relationships with people who knew my work. And then could build this authentic relationship with them. And then they would move on to other parts of the organization. And so that's great. They became, lifelong mentors. And then I have mentors outside of work as well. But again, it's because of an interaction that I've had. It's been because of a connection that's been made. And then okay, well, this is a connection. It's an authentic connection. And then, have maintained those.
Yeah, I think for me, and I totally agree with you, the forced, will you be my mentor? If I look at the people that have had, like, I'm thinking of my biggest mentor in my life, and she was a client of mine at one point. She was a CMO. And I will never forget, we were in a meeting and we had totally hit it off. And at the end of the meeting, she said, do you have a minute? And I was like, hello, yes, for you. Of course I have a minute. And she went and grabbed this book. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm really passionate and I read everything. It is the way I start every morning. I read for 30 minutes, usually at 5 or 5:30 in the morning with coffee. It's my quiet time. It's my favorite. And she went and grabbed this book. And who here has kids, right? Do you remember, like, if you give a pig, what are those? They gave them away at Chick-fil-A. If you give a pig something, if you give a mouse a minute, does anybody know it? Okay, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not completely losing it. So there's this book, and she ran and she got it for me, and it's called If You Give a Woman a Minute.
Yeah.
And it is this parody on, like, if you give a woman a minute, she will have a conference call, put a load of wash in the washing machine, lead a PTA meeting, drop off food for a neighbor that's sick. And it's just this amazing book. And this is the biggest mentor in my life. And we just started sharing books over the years. And I actually texted her this morning and just said, just so you know, I'll be talking about you today.
I love that. Yeah.
And if I look at the people that I have mentored, it's been some that have been through kind of like a work type situation, but it's also been like some people that I knew like through my church that were, seniors that ended up going into college and knew who I was, et cetera. I really feel like the best mentoring programs happen in a natural way. I say this, and I lead the mentoring program at the University of Georgia, which is an official way, but like the first girl that I mentored from there, I'm a single mom, and she comes and stays with my kids sometimes when I have to travel for work.
Yeah,
And she
that's
was a girl
awesome.
that I kind of unofficially mentored.
Yeah, it's because you formed a connection, right? So like you can introduce people and maybe even under the guise of mentorship, but if there's no connection, it doesn't last.
Yeah, and it's not get me a job. That's not what mentoring is, which a lot of
Yes.
people think, oh, you're going to be a mentor, just help me get a job. And I'm like, no, 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 no. We develop a relationship, and then I help you because of who you are and what you've shown, right?
Yeah, agreed. I'm gonna have to get this book.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
fabulous.
That's like my favorite thing to send people books. So thinking about leadership, thinking about mentoring, like the traditional workplace has just completely been turned upside down in the past couple years, right? And you were in Canada, now you're in Dallas, and are y'all back to the office at all?
We are. So we're back. We've got something called Work That Works. We're back about 2 to 3 days a week.
Okay, similar to us. So I would be curious on like how are you fostering this community of growth, of connection, of leadership in your team coming out of the pandemic? Because I think that's something that a lot of us have struggled from a leadership standpoint, quite honestly, of like flexibility works, but being together is really helpful when you have to collaborate, when you have to decide, when you have to debate. I was talking about the 4Ds, and you mentioned, tell me about the 4Cs.
Yeah, so we've got something, it's called under Work That Works. It's basically the 4 Cs, and that's the reason that you would come together in person. So it's about collaborating, creativity, being creative together, building connections, and then I missed one. Collaboration, creativity, connections, and I'll think about it here in a second. But those principles are what we use to say, hey, when you're together, those are the things you should be doing. Because the worst thing, and everyone knows this, I'm going to say something super obvious, is when you go into the office and you spend the entire day on Zoom. So, I mean, you could do that from home. You don't need to do that in the office. So our office work needs to look very different. And it's a shift in your mindset, because if you think about it, we've been now 3 years, like two years, feels like, 100 years on Zoom. And it took a big shift to get there. And it's going to take a big shift to get back to this, like, this in-between space. I say this all the time to my team. It was not good when we were in the office 5 days a week. That felt bad. I missed important things for my kids. I hated being on the road all the time. I hated all those things. That was bad. That extreme was horrible. The extreme of being on Zoom, also horrible. Rolling out of bed and going straight to your laptop and then shutting it right when you're ready to go get back into bed. Oh my gosh, that sucked too. And we saw this amazing rise in productivity, like 30% productivity. We've kind of looked at that at PepsiCo. That's a lot more work that people are doing. This in between, perfect. Like that's probably what we were longing for even before COVID. It's perfect because it gives you the flexibility that we loved, the aspects of the flexibility that we loved when we were all, at home, but it also gives you those moments that are so essential for an organization, for a team, to do good work, which is, the collaborating, the creativity, the building connections, and I will remember that 4C eventually. But, and I think that's the right place to be. But it is a bit scary. The first day that I had to go back to work, I was like, what am I going to wear? Because I don't think the Fabletics are going to cut it at work. Don't think I can show up in leggings.
The work mullet. I'm like,
it was
half
like,
the time I get up on Zoom and I'm like, I'm dressed from here.
Yes. And it was kind of stressful. So I think just empathy of people need to ease into this a little bit. I think that's incredibly important. But I think also making the time when you're in person purposeful, changing what that looks like a bit, having it be actually more in-person connections and in-person work, I think will start to make the transition a lot easier. And you need that to develop leaders. You need some of that.
I love what you're talking about there. It's like, it's about time together that matters, right? So when I started this job in January, I hadn't been in an office in a couple years. And I remember I started and I'm new and it's all these new people and I'm in an office building. I hadn't been in one for like 2.5 years. And one of my coworkers, I was like, can we just go walk for 30 minutes? So it started where, a lot of my colleagues, we do what we call walk and talks. And it's actually Ariana Huffington who gave me this idea when we worked together many years ago. So it's not fully my idea, but it's the best way to catch up. And I love what you're talking about with like radical transparency. Most of my coworkers were up here on Monday and I was like, you know what? My daughter's got elite club volleyball tryouts and I don't hide from that. I own it. It's like, this is what's happening in my life and it's important to me and I'll be there Tuesday morning.
Yeah, that's great. My kiddos are flying in tonight so that we can spend the weekend in New York because I've been away and I've been here. So I can't wait for that. I think I love this new space that we're in.
Well, I have loved having this chat. So thank you so much. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but this has been amazing to sit here with you. Thank you.